Welcome to southwestern Denmark in the late spring of 1960. Obbekær is a typical country station on a private railway, which links a series of small communities with a local service for passengers and freight. These private railways have been a feature of the Danish network since the 19th century, but many of them will not see the decade out. Facilities here are minimal, with a platform, run-round loop and siding. The station building has a small booking office, waiting room and toilets. Obbekær still has its own station master and is also a base for the local permanent way gang. We'll explore the rest of the station later, but a distant hoot suggests that a train from Ribe is about to disturb the tranquility of the scene, so the station master raises the signal to give the train permission to enter the station. Here we have a typical branch passenger train for a private railway of this period, formed of a skinnebus or rail bus, operated by a crew of driver and conductor, and no doubt bringing school children and market day shoppers home from Ribe. These units were built in great numbers by the Scandia works at Ranners in the 1940s and 50s, and could operate in multiple or with trailers to provide a very flexible and economical method of transport. The train comes to a halt in the platform, and the station master will lower the signal. Today, the front luggage rack carries boxes of herring and eggs for delivery to one of the stations along the line. As the driver gets ready to leave for Gram and Vojens, let me explain how I developed this idea for a model. My family has visited Ribe regularly over the last 30 years through the town's long-established twinning arrangement with our home city of Ely. Ribe is known as Denmark's oldest town, and it still displays its rich history at every corner, with the elegant cathedral standing out across the flat rural landscape. I was particularly drawn to the old riverside quay at Skibrum, where the mix of buildings, each with their own history, catch the eye and cry out to be modelled. I therefore used my local contacts to find out more about them. The models of these buildings were started around 20 years ago, using a combination of local drawings, photos and measurements taken on site. At that stage there were no specific ideas for a railway to accompany them, but a chance meeting with the three members of the Ribe Model Railway Group changed that. They were able to give me a very authoritative insight into the history of railways in the area and the various characteristics of their operation, and from that an idea for a railway that could be modelled. They've been great friends of mine ever since and continue to be a valuable source of information and inspiration. Go back in time to the war between Denmark and Prussia in 1864, and the new border, shown here in red, was quite different from the one that applies today. The south of Jutland was occupied and would become part of the unified Germany, and during this period a number of metre-gauge tramways were built to serve the rural areas, as shown by the thin black lines on this map. Fast forward to 1920 and the border reverted to its present location. The Danish government set up a railway commission to determine how South Jutland could best be served by rail, and one of the proposals was to convert the narrow gauge line from Vojens to Gram to standard gauge and extend it to Ribe, thus providing a cross-country link between the two main lines on the west and east coasts. Projected as a private railway, it was never built, but in my project it was completed and came to life as the Ribe Gram Vojens Jernbane, or RGVJ. It's shown here in crimson. It's been an interesting exercise to map the route of the railway from a terminus at the quayside in Ribe, calling at the town's main station and then heading east across the heathland, with the first proper stop at Obbekær, the subject of this model. I reckon that a simple layout would allow me to test some aspects of construction in a new scale over a relatively short time period. In reality, it's taken nearly 15 years to get this far. So let's get back to the station, where we see the daily westbound goods train on its way from Vojens to Ribe. The motive power on this occasion is typical of the private railway's attempts to modernise and reduce costs in the 1920s and 30s. At this time, the United Automobile Factory in Odense started to produce petrol engine rail cars under the brand name of Triangel, and this example is typical of one of the early batches, subsequently upgraded with a diesel engine. This train is often steam hauled, but today the steam loco is not available, so the triangel is pressed into service. The model, based on an example from North Jutland, is scratch built from my own etches, with a small Machima motor driving the rear axle through a high level gearbox. Leaving the rest of the train in the platform, the triangel moves forward with the 2 wagons to be left at Obbekær. Today, these are a covered van for the livestock pen and an open wagon for the goods siding. In doing so, it passes the trackside water crane, which is used to top up the tanks of steam locos when required, the water being pumped up from the river below. Here we see the RGVJ's diminutive tank loco number 3 taking water on another occasion. The loop points are changed and the lantern alongside the lever rotates to indicate the route set. All trackwork on the layout is built with riveted plywood sleepers, etched rail plates and code 55 rail, using templates from DSB drawings. A scotch protects the main line from traffic on the goods loop. This is rotated to allow the train into the yard. The yard at Obbekær is just a single siding with a paved area and a gantry crane to assist loading and unloading. Traffic here consists largely of produce from local farms going out, and coal and the occasional item of agricultural machinery coming in. Martin Houson's Bedford lorry is ready to pick up a consignment. Live animal traffic, principally cattle and pigs, is important to the RGVJ, and each station has a covered pen such as this for the loading of livestock. Farmer Moritzen is checking on the condition of his prize pigs before they're taken by train to market in Ribe. Back towards the station, this small packhus or goods shed is located at the end of the station platform, allowing less than wagon load traffic and parcels to be loaded or unloaded direct from the train. This model is based on the preserved example at Binneballa on the Vandalbane in mid-Jutland. It seems that a beer delivery has just been made. The triangel now leaves for the short journey to Ribe, pulling just a tank wagon and a refrigerated wagon carrying meat or dairy produce. Back at the other end of the station, on the far side of the line, is the transformer tower, providing a power supply to the station and 1 or 2 local farms. This is a model of a surviving one in the nearby village of Sunnahugum, built from photos and on-site measurements. As with all my buildings, the first stage of construction is to draw all the component parts in CAD, with a grid for accurate alignment of the brickwork. This is stuck to 20 thou plasticard with mech-pack and the parts cut out. There are several layers for each wall, and once assembled this results in a robust structure. The brickwork is added using strips of evergreen plasticard for each course, with a sharp scalpel used to nick the vertical joints to depict the correct pattern of brickwork. A sprayed coat of grey primer provides the mortar colour, with the individual bricks painted using acrylics. While we're at this end of the station, we can witness the arrival of a pair of trains that are due to cross at Obbekær. First in is a westbound mixed train, formed of a later triangle rail car and a number of wagons that are bound for the main goods yard at the DSB station in Ribe. The last two wagons of this train are of note. The first is a private owner wagon belonging to a popular ice cream manufacturer. I found that they had a parlour in Ribe, so I felt justified in having one. The second of the two needs no explanation. All the major breweries in Denmark had their own fleets of wagons, which were seen regularly in all parts of the country. At the west end of the station, a small shunting tractor rumbles across the bridge with a track maintenance train and comes to a stand. As the main platform road is occupied, the driver waits for the road into the loop to be set and the scotch cleared before the signal is raised to allow him forward. This little train is composed of a tool van, followed by a ballast hopper, and lastly a product of the RGVJ workshops in the form of an open wagon carrying an old boiler that's used to carry weed killer. Pipework at the rear of the wagon allows the track to be sprayed whilst the train is in motion. With the PW train safely in the loop, the scotch is closed and the triangle can then move off in the direction of Ribe. I mentioned earlier that the RGVJ could be envisaged as a parallel diversionary route for the main line running across Jutland between Fredericia and Esbjerg. This gives us the opportunity to run a couple of trains from the state-operated DSB. Here we have a Litra MO railcar coupled with a driving trailer. In many ways, a typical DSB branch line train of the 1930s right through to the 1970s. These units were very versatile. They could be operated in multiple and were powerful enough to provide the motive power for international trains from Germany or for the Esbjerg boat train from Copenhagen. Today, the MO will make a brief stop at Obbekær before continuing on to Gram, Vojens and the East Jutland main line. Our final train in this short sequence includes some very welcome steam traction in the form of a DSB Litra D260 on a postal service. These locos were truly maids of all work, both freight and passenger, and were to be seen all over the network. This is a model of number 850, a regular at Esbjerg shed in the period modelled. It's a hobby trade model which has had significant surgery to its chassis to convert it to P87, including new tyres to the reprofiled wheels, new horn blocks and etched coupling rods. Whilst the main features of Obbekær have now been completed, there are still improvements to be made to the rolling stock, including a couple of steam locos and some four-wheeled coaches and vans. It's been a fascinating experience to bring the project into fruition over the last 15 years or so, and the layout is now featured in exhibitions in Denmark, Holland and the UK, as well as the modelling press in each of these countries and Norway. A start has now been made on the originally planned layout of the RGVJ terminus at Ribe, including some new ideas around techniques and presentation, which we can hopefully share with you on another occasion. In the meantime, on behalf of all of those who've been involved in the Obbekær project, thanks for watching, and we hope to meet you on the exhibition circuit at some stage in the future.